Greetings.
Greetings.
Welcome to the third episode of Out of Noise
Podcast.
with your hosts Stella B and
Nat Nai, and we bring the peace to the mic.
that's right.
That's what this is all about.
So today
We're going to talk about the cost of living crisis.
yes, very serious and sobering subject. Bringing our perspectives as artists in the UK for now.
And as black people, I don't think our people talk about this kind of topic enough. We're bombarded with racism, obviously, and we're bombarded with just different forms of injustices. Problems within our community, gang violence with the young people and such. We're bombarded with that. So more time people don't address economic issues apart from we need to develop our own personal economy by like spending black. Beyond that, we don't actually have discussions on political issues or economic issues that affects everybody, but what happens to us in that. And we know that generally speaking, black people tend to be worse off in whatever climate that is the whole nation is going through, wherever you may be in the world, or specifically in the Western world. If there's an issue like with the whole COVID thing, for example, they would produce statistics that would show that black people were suffering worse than that. And you find with every crisis, you find that we're the ones who suffer the most. So I feel this is good for us to, talk about the cost of living crisis. That has been, the term has been thrown around the media quite a lot. And I don't think I can say I've seen any of us talk about it.
No, I mean, so today I was on scrolling, and Swiss had a little clip. He'd been interviewed by Good Morning Britain by another brother whose name I've forgotten, apologies, but he's talking about the Black Pound Day store and its whole mission. But he mentioned the statistics. He talked about, for every white household that earns a pound, African Caribbean household is 20p, and for an African household, African British, it's 10p. So it's along the same vein because these kind of statistics in a time of cost of living, what happens is that it becomes even more extreme. And then us not addressing these kind of subjects means that people are just literally suffering in silence. And we're copers, aren't we? As black people, we're copers. We manage, but we're in a time where we're recognizing that it's not about surviving and being in survival mode all the time. It's about actual thriving. We want to really talk about solutions as well. What is it that we as a community can do, or even as individuals, how we can lift ourselves out of this economic depressive situation that everybody's been placed in. But yes, with particular look at us as black people, how it's even more severely affecting us, but how we can do our part in not letting it kind of defeat us.
Yes, absolutely. And by having the discussion, those statistics is quite harrowing, because the gap is huge. For every pound 20p. For every pound 10p.
Wow.
It's not even close. It's nowhere near close.
It's insane.
It's like, that's literally a fifth.
It stood out. I was just like,
literally a tenth.
Huh?
I mean, that goes. What that comes down to is ownership.
And
really and truly, if you go beyond our race, if you go beyond people of African descent, then people's conditions is down to ownership and the dictates of those who own. So the ability to, or the desire, not the ability, the desire to pay workers. Because a big misconception with people on benefits is that
Right.
they're not working.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of people who are on benefits are actually working. The problem is they're not getting paid enough. They're not getting paid the value of their energy in this corporation that they work for, or company that they work for. So the living wage, off the top of my head, is I think £11 something.
Okay, the national living wage.
The national living wage.
Right, okay.
But minimum wage is what, £7.50 or something like that, and depending on your age as well.
Yeah.
The national minimum wage is significantly lower than the actual living wage. So the wage that you need to live on.
Right.
With the politicians, when they give themselves pay rises, they're basically making sure that their wage in real terms is not affected by things like inflation.
Right.
So they're ensuring that they're protected. They don't lose out. But what they're not doing is they're not making sure that everybody else doesn't lose out. So when you see the nurses and the teachers now having to go to food banks, those are people who are working, and they're very important roles. What is a hospital without a nurse? What is a school without a teacher? So those critical roles in our society are so devalued that those people struggle to be able to sustain themselves off that wage.
Yeah.
They have to go to a food bank, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's been that way for the last, so another thing I was watching, talking about the cost of living, breaking down the fact that it's and the quote was, it's austerity on steroids.
Yes.
So we've been ushered into these times for the last, say, 5 years or so.
Well, if you're going to say since austerity, we're going to go to the financial crash of 2008, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been coming since then, but remember, that's been up and down, and we've had, increases in wages at those times. But since, let's say, how long have these pay freezes been going on?
For a long time.
Yeah. Those are the things that people are beginning to feel more and more so, because as inflation goes up, price of bed goes up, and everything else is going up, and like you say, locking those wages, but then keeping the rich, they get more paid while people are suffering and going to food banks. They're getting more and more ability to triple their funds, their banks looking crazy, all their investments and all this kind of stuff. They've got access to knowing how to play the game, the money game.
Well, I'd say that the game functions in their favour.
Yeah.
So how much, the government, we would have heard, most people watching this would have heard of the U-turn that Liz Truss and Kwarteng had to do, because they were trying to cut the taxes for the richest of the country, and they were going to do that by cutting benefits and putting it towards. So you take it and they take the benefits from the poor, cut that, and then give the extra to the richest.
Yeah, and have it in the purse basically. So it's no longer retractable from the rich as tax.
Yes. And that will be paid for through the poor.
Wow.
In the Conservative campaign with Sunak, the leaked footage of him basically saying a affluent area deserves, and the urban, what was the word?
Will no longer be
the disenfranchised, or whatever the terminology that he used.
Disenfranchised. He did say the disenfranchised.
He used a particular word that basically meant disenfranchised. Basically, they ain't got it. They don't deserve to have the little that they do get, and the already rich and affluent areas deserve to get government support. When it comes to the system working in their favour, it's doing stuff along the lines of trickle-down economics.
Right.
So we'll give you the money and you provide the jobs. But you're providing the jobs, paying people what exactly?
Exactly, and people want modern-day slaves. People want cheap labour. They just want cheap labor. So all those people that are like, yeah, like when things like that are said, it's because you just want a slave working for you. You want as much profit as possible. It's greed.
It's greed.
It's pure greed. It's like, what is your need? What is your level of consumerism? You know? And why is your compassion for humanity so low that it's like, you just literally can't, the part of you that should care just, it's just so, you know, like that Pimlico plumbers owner around the time of austerity, and Jeremy Corbyn. If you don't know who Jeremy Corbyn is, he was the leader of the Labour Party for how many years?
A good few years.
So sorry. Yeah, Jeremy Corbyn. He was the leader of the Labour Party for a good few years, and like Pimlico Plumbers leader or head, CEO or creator, he basically was so anti him, but he was so willing to like deface his name and do some certain things, pay like, you know, thousands, hundreds and thousands of money to put up huge poster that was like basically something from the times of the Nazis, like just a picture, a cartoon of Jeremy Corbyn in a derogatory fashion, sort of saying, be scared of this guy, you know, don't let him into power. And this is a man who has worked his way up into wealth, you know, into ridiculous amount of money, and it comes from the working class, so arguably should care more or feel more for some of the sentiments of, said Jeremy Corbyn. But there's this willingness, this greed that comes from a certain class of people, a certain group of people. They disattach themselves from ever having the notion that they'll ever be at the hands of suffrage. Like they would ever need a food bank. They would ever, you know, be that homeless person that's on the streets outside Buckingham Palace. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like they just so disattached.
Yeah. They're so disattached. Yeah, that in what you've just described, like you can see how trickle down economics doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
You're given the government. So basically, the government gives power to the richest corporations and the richest people, and give them the sole responsibility.
Oh no!
Are you gonna have to go back? Oh. So an example of the government basically helping corporations get richer and giving them the responsibility to lift the economy and lift the population out of desperate times is the fact that they use taxpayers' money to the tune of 18.7 billion and use that to pay for the corporation tax cuts. So the argument is that if we give corporations, if we make the land friendly for corporations, they'll want to come here, they'll bring business, and therefore people get paid because they'll be working, right? But at the same time, you're taking public service money to be able to fuel that, and that means adverse or lack of funding for the NHS, for the school systems, etc., and other public services. So when they're saying there's no money in the NHS, that is political decisions being made to ensure that there's no funding for the NHS. This is deliberate. There's a lot of like the propaganda in this country and in the West in general is to take away accountability from what is when it's all said and done, pure corruption. So when you're taking money from public services and you're giving it to corporations, that is, and they're getting richer and richer and richer, that is literally the government helping that situation out. And without putting the pressure upon them to say, look, you have to pay your workers living wage, not minimum wage, living wage. You don't put no pressure upon them, but you're giving them public money to do, I guess, public service work. So the other thing was that they had to do the U-turn because they wanted to give a tax cut for the wealthiest in the country, but there was too much of a backlash, and that was one of the reasons why the pound went down. which a hedge fund that Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss also connected to made millions from. I mean,
that's what I was saying. When you have the access to knowledge and stuff like that, these people will consistently make money out of every situation. They'll design the situation to make that money, and people are suffering at the cost of it.
Yeah,
it's just really, really, really evil.
And yeah, and in terms of really, really evil, the gas prices that have shot up.
Yeah, so the gas prices, I mean, do you have the stats for that? Like, it's crazy. Like, my uncle's just saying to me, okay, so from now on, October, whatever, it's shot up to like £200 a month. And last year, that was 70 something pounds a month, which, you know, is crazy when you really understand what energy is and how it literally works in terms of these essentials that we all need: gas, electric. £70 a month, okay, that's it for a household of however many, to go up to 200 in less than the space of a year.
It's insane. And this is the thing about, like, not examining what's going on a deeper level than the surface of it. Oh, Russia, Ukraine is to blame, or this and that to blame. No, rubbish, nonsense. When these BP, if that is what is the reason, whatever external factors is the reason why the gas prices has gone up, then BP and Shell should not be reporting record profits.
Yeah,
this
and
year.
British Gas.
Yeah.
All of them. Like, some insane amount of money is made.
Yeah, profits.
And
record,
you know,
profits.
If people know what profits are, so you have your profit. You have like your target for what you need to reach to pay all your staff, to pay, you know, the CEO of the company, and, you know, everyone's paid
all
or whatever, and then
covered.
Pump back into the company. And, you know, that's the expenditure. Then your profits is what is surplus. It's the extra money, and that is what we're talking about when we talk about the ridiculous amount of money being made at the same time as people in hundreds of thousands having to go to food banks. And then, like you mentioned earlier, the teachers, the nurses, the people, the essential people who play essential roles in this society are all suffering and can't pay their gas, can't pay their freaking electric. And then the winter time is when this is going to be occurring more. Do you understand that this is almost like murder? This is like straight. We want people to like just disappear off the face of this earth because, you know, we want the robots to come and take over their jobs and stuff. Like, we don't need human beings anymore, because it's like, this is a deliberate, like you keep saying.
Yeah, it's not accidental. It's not a phenomenon. Shareholders getting X amount of profits as well. It doesn't have to be this way. And from a moral point of view, if you are providing a public service, you shouldn't be making profits. That's my view. You shouldn't be making profits of something that human beings need as a right. So we all need food, water. We need clothing. We need shelter. Those are the basis. If you're an entity that provides food, if you're an entity that provides heating in cold countries, if you're an entity that provides households, so toiletries or toilets, in fact, water in terms of being able to shower and all them and keep clean. If you're an entity like that, you should not be making profits, because people do not have a choice. You know, the business capitalism does not play a part in that. It doesn't play a part. There's no competition there. You go to where you go. If you go to what you need to survive. So it's from a moral standpoint, it's wrong for the government to give public service money to corporations that don't have the people at their heart and only have the shareholders at their heart. So they are the ones that benefit from the profits. So you have a situation where the people, they're raising the prices so that they can continue to increase on profits. So from quarter to quarter, they want to improve upon the last one, despite the fact that the majority of people are going to be ill affected. And what it's literally causing is the rich poor divide to grow ever more and slide the middle class down into working class, so shrink the middle class. That is literally what we're witnessing before our eyes. As I was saying earlier as well, in terms of the rise of technology as well, which is not being accounted for. So the quote unquote mundane jobs that you could say was attributed to the creation of by Ford, in terms of the production line, de-skilling of skills.
So Ford is the car,
Yeah.
the brand of the car, and was the first sort of factory production line in terms of that how that became the norm in the industrial revolution. So but that also meant de-skilling.
Yes. Mechanics, for example.
Yeah.
And then so each sector operates in that fashion where people have been de-skilled. Now, when machines and tech now are able to do that, then those people are now surplus to requirements. And that's the horrid part of it. So society is not preparing for the rise of technology, or now it's still not preparing for the rise of technology in terms of what's going to happen with all these people now deemed surplus to requirements. And what is the education system doing to update the next generation to handle this new world that they're in, other than just us causing addiction and all the problems that come from it?
Exactly. Just designing people to be consumers, to feel inadequate as humans, and then just to want to suppress emotions by consuming more and more and more. That is what the future generations are still being taught. Like, it's been going on since we were kids. It's been going on since before that, but even more intensely so with the rise of social media and stuff like that. The credit system. And I wanted to talk to you about that actually and get your thoughts on so as things are being shifted, so as more and more people need food banks, as more and more people depend on the government for that boost of money that to help them get through the month, the social credit system, this terminology is popping up more and more. Just wanted you to kind of go in a little bit about that so people can hear your thoughts on what potentially could be coming and what the intentions are, and why this environment that we're in could be leading towards that.
Well,
leading question.
Well, yeah. Almost answered it in the question.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So in China, they have a form of a social credit system currently in place. I guess if you're a good citizen, then you have the freedom to travel around wherever you want to. You have the freedom to buy whatever you want to, etc., etc. If you're not deemed a good citizen, then you have restrictions on your movement, for example. And
measurements of what you're doing well, or that is great, was the like button came about here on Facebook.
Yeah.
Which was actually designed to release those sense of those good feelings, those hormones, the dopamines.
Yes.
And that's an addictive thing. So it means that you're constantly looking for the little heart on your phone to be popped up.
It feels
red.
Good.
It feels nice. It's like a little...
You get
literally hormonally, or you're reacting to that, and you become more attached to that device.
Attention economy.
So it's the credit. We're talking about replacement of money, essentially. No longer need currency like that, but it's your value that you're bringing to society. And dangers of it is not that. The dangers of it is what? It's not the things that you're valued for is not necessarily what's good for the planet or good for society as a whole. It's actually the opposite. It's like, what makes you consume more? How are you going to become a product, or how are you going to become a advert rail for whatever company wants you to advertise their stuff, because you're getting all the attention for the attention economy.
Yeah, again, what is the moral education that is the bedrock of these new well, it's an industry now, isn't it? Like influencer is actually a role. It's an actual role. You get paid for that. But in general, outside of that, in terms of the preparing for this world that we're in, it's not there. If you're aware, then you get skilled at well, doing what we're doing now. We are forced. We are forced to be on a platform like this, even though really our natural state of being is being in person and putting on events like that. But we're forced to utilize this and share message as well. But it's where we're all at. No matter what sector you're in, you need to be if you want to prosper beyond, or you want to expand your reach, or if you want to expand your earning capabilities, then you have to use social media. That's the way it is right now. It's just the way it is. But what I'm saying is that on a widespread, there isn't enough conversation on that. And too often the conversations regarding the cost of living, when it comes up, the critical elements is regarded as a phenomenon not to be mentioned. The roles of shareholders, as I was saying earlier, is not really spoken about. The fact that as you described in terms of what profits actually are, why is it that companies or corporations that are providing public services, why do they need to have profits? Why do they need to have profits upon profits when the people are struggling, especially in that scenario? It's not like everyone's affluent and everyone's living abundantly and then we wouldn't really care. But people are struggling, and people are struggling more and more and more, and no, the question of where those profits are going is not even there. There's no question of that. It's not like shouldn't there's something wrong here. It's just a phenomena that is not really mentioned.
So is there enough money, before you go back to finishing about the social credit system in China, is there enough money, in your opinion, or factually as you know it, that could literally, say just in the UK, end the situation where you've got 14 million as of 2018 who are living in poverty?
100%.
Is there enough money that these corporations are being given that would wipe that out?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. 100%. And you know it.
I know, I'm just, it's just I want people
100%.
to understand, because when sometimes, when you hear billions or such a number, it can be a bit like so far away, you don't actually quite understand how much money that is, and how much of a difference that makes in people's lives. So I just wanted you to kind of give that, that kind of understanding to people, because people kind of deny. You'll have people that are suffering from all of this who will say, but it's not the corporation. Like, you have all these people protecting the rich.
Yeah, it's weird.
And I think it's because the concept of just how much profits is being made is not. It doesn't. People don't really understand. Those people specifically don't really get what that is, like how much a change that could make in millions of people's lives overnight. Yeah,
I mean, okay, the figures that I mentioned earlier, I guess if I was an economist or I was a mathematical wizard in that sense, it would figure out, that's not enough, right? But what I'm saying is that there shouldn't, if you're providing a public service, then you should be making those level of profits, and you shouldn't be charging the people higher. And like, basically, if it's profits versus people struggling, or the elderly, when it comes to the winter, they are at risk of death. So a lot of elderly people suffer to that extent because they cannot afford to pay their gas. This has been going on for years. So if it's a choice between profits and people, then they shouldn't have no profits. Zero. I'd say £0, 0 pence for in terms of profits. Shareholders, you don't need that money. That money can be redistributed, keeping the prices at a reasonable level so that people can have their gas. That's when, so people can stay warm. Like, people shouldn't have been figuring, is it food tonight or is it heating?
And
they got children
there's some
as well.
countries in like this is something for me. UK is like the beacon of civilization, and you know, this is what the impression that has been given. You know, like it's quite messed up that is happening in this first world, which, okay, I have problems with all these terminologies, okay, it's just nonsense, but they're meant to be exemplary, right? Exemplary. And so that's why you have all these excuses. Oh, it's because of Brexit. Oh, it's because of immigration. Oh, it's because, you know, the war in Russia. Oh, it's because of austerity and all of this kind of stuff. But now we're just breaking down, or, you know, looking at on the very surface level that the fact that it is engineered, is by design, and it's headed towards the future that is in the vision of whoever has this vision.
Yeah, because there's no good reason. And the argument that they will use is that if the government puts pressure on corporations for them to pay their fair tax, then they'll just go elsewhere. That's the argument.
I know, and it's like, okay, yes, we understand about corporations. Corporations are like gods, literal. Like they weave themselves into all manner of your life, like day to day. And the fact is that politics, what am I trying to say? Politics is sponsored, funded, you know, dictated to by people, corporations that lobby for certain things that they want to be put in place. And that's what gets the priority in terms of what's important. So all your signatories of like, oh, you know what, you need to look at discrimination in the workplace, you need to look at this, that, and you're signing all these petitions and stuff like that, is overlooked. Why? Because if the corporation don't care about that, you know, whatever their interest is what's going to take the priority. So it's all a kind of mad kind of game of power and power shifting, and, you know, the maneuvering in that way. So yeah, you do begin to wonder, what are those profits going on? Like, what is it that the money is being spent on? Like, what project somewhere to, you know, to travel to Mars or whatever? Like, what is it that these ridiculous amounts of money can't go back into the actual humans that count and matter?
Right, like, and that's exactly that. And it's having those type of conversations is imperative to actually changing things. But they escape accountability. Corporations escape a lot of accountability on multiple different levels, and as you said, actually they are the gods, because only at that level can you escape the level of accountability, in terms of accountability for the environment. So the production of plastics, the oil spills, if you want to go there as well, the general pollution, the mistreatment of animals in terms of the way
the human resource,
animals gets to become meat,
yeah,
the human resource, and the human resource, and if we want to go to Congo and we mentioned technology, the fueling of that technology coming from the predominantly the minerals, coltan, for example, in Congo itself. They're not paying the people properly there either. It's every step of the way of the line, they're not paying people. And the best thing that comes of it is products for consumers. As you say, that it's every part of our lives. But the responsibility for those said things to deal with and handle falls upon the population, who power to actually change these things is limited. There's only so much you can do as an individual. For example, if you care about plastic, there's only so much that you can do as an individual to prevent you. Well, you can say, for myself, I'm making sure that the bottles that I buy is glass, for example, or I don't get any more plastic bags. I just use my own one bag or whatnot, my 2 bags for my shopping, and I'm not producing anymore. But if you want to buy your berries, if you want to buy your fruit, you want to buy your veg, you want to buy whatever, what's it coming in? So the responsibility of fixing these problems fall upon the citizen, not the corporations. And people don't talk about what the corporations should be doing as a result of benefiting so much from essentially a monopoly on public services, and also getting the benefit of government help, literal government help. So when people think about government help, their minds, because the media pushes that, goes to the poorest people who are on benefits. Oh, how lazy, etc. Not the fact that millions are being put, or billions in fact, being put into corporate hands to help them stay in this country.
Exactly. It's like one rule for one group, one god, one corporation, and a different for people that are actually, no, they're not lazy. You know, there's people who are self-employed. There's people that are artists. There are people who are entrepreneurs who are trying to start up businesses.
There's nurses and teachers.
There is nurses and teachers. There's all these people that are providing a very vital service. There are care workers. All these people are not lazy and
Zero-hour workers as well.
Right. People who are doing these apprenticeships and getting paid hardly nothing, trying to upskill themselves, trying to go for any opportunity, missing out on their true sense of purpose, like what they actually were put on this planet for, because it's all about survival, you know. And to just kind of wipe everyone and just say, oh, everyone's just lazy and that's the reason why they're in suffrage, is like, it's just really more than insensitive. It's
dishonest. I'd say it's dishonest, because you're looking at even the wealthiest people now. Like, you have corporates and then you have the wealthiest people, or the ones who they project and tell us is the wealthiest people. You see the amount of help that they get, the literal help that they get, literal help from
from Daddy's Trust Fund, or from the government, or from this, or from that. Loads of money
government.
From the government. Yeah, the government has been so involved in a lot of massive corporations being able to actually become the conglomerates that they are today.
Yes.
I believe the FBI is and the FBI and the government in America and the USA is involved in the Disney franchise becoming the massive global conglomerate. I will check that and put those facts for you, on the bottom of the screen. But it's that, when you really, even with Facebook, at a level, when they began to be the level that it's got to now, which is where Mark Zuckerberg is calling it a freaking religion, that size. There was a stage where government was investing in Facebook, I believe, right? So it's to understand the mechanisms that make these things become what they become, and have that level of power, essentially power of influence, power of, being able to change and shift what society is doing the next day. It is because it's hand in hand. It's not just, and that's coming from essentially what the government money is. What is that?
Yeah, it's from us.
It's from us.
Yeah, it's from us.
It's from the workers. And so slavery economy is real thing. Don't think it's just whips and chains. It's they're in other forms now. We are literally living androids for these people to, be making these crazy profits.
Yeah,
they're making.
Yeah,
that's the intention. And then when you break free from being trapped like that, or you're an artist, or you want to be self-employed, or you're an entrepreneur, in these times it's it's so hard to maintain.
Well, yeah, because again, when it comes to these the artist sector is not respected anyway, but
unless it's high art.
Yeah, unless it's high. Well, exactly. If it's suiting a particular demographics needs, but when it comes to a cost of living crisis, then the non-essentials is cast aside, right? The arts is considered a non-essential.
Yeah, in schools, I know that they want to lessen the need for those classes. It's those are the first things in a budget cut.
Yeah, the first things in the budget cut.
Youth services in black areas especially. But then at the same time, investing in prisons.
Right. And then there goes private prisons, right? Yeah, so it's just, basically.
So some money came from that from somehow. I think Okala put a statistic about that, didn't he? About in his book Natives, about the actual money that is spent per month or per.
I don't know.
Can't remember what the exact, but the equivalent of that spent on a child or children going to said private schools or being educated so that they can become, you know, great parts of society, was like you're spending more actually in those kind of prisons. You're spending more there than you would do if you actually invested in children becoming and excelling and
exactly
becoming great.
It's not about widespread excellence.
No,
it's not about that at all.
It's and like holding on to
it's holding on to
select few.
The select few. That is what it's really, when it's all said and done, that's what it's really about. So the system as it's structured is for the purpose of the select few. Basically what we're saying is that if we're having these type of conversations, then you're decoding the phenomena and you're talking about what is actually going on here, and that these decisions it's not a natural circumstance of capitalism. This is actually deliberate, and the ones who are responsible are left unaccounted for. From each, so now as a person of African descent, from each system that we've been under since they were able to enslave our people, we've always found ways to navigate our way. And with each of these crisis moments, or unity has always been that way. So collectives coming together, groups coming together and operating in a unified fashion to be able to survive and thrive. So if you want to look at the easiest obvious examples of that is Black Wall Street,
right,
in America. At some point I'll do some research to see what examples there are here of that. What I do know off the top of my head is the partners that used to happen here. So how, if you like, the Windrush generation were able to acquire property is because they were more unified, operating together, putting their money together, living under the same household.
Buying the property.
And such like that. So if now, for example, going to the supermarket is expensive, right? But if you join your households together and you go to a wholesale market, you're going to save all of you are going to save a lot of money. So just doing stuff like that in a more unified fashion can do that. Or even unifying on your hustles, like in which way can which other fit whatever role that is needed for your side hustle if you're working a 9 to 5, or if you're like us two who are entrepreneurial artists, just finding different people that can play the roles that we need to for us to be functioning and operating at our full potential. That's essentially it. When you're looking at the ones at the very top making those decisions, you're actually seeing examples of proper unity. So it's I got your back type thing. Politician does this, whatever, resigns, ends up in the top role in the corporation because he or she played their role that benefited that corporation when they were in politics.
Right.
Or whether they get resigned or not, they still go if they finish their term, they end up in the top role. Like, and we've seen that with Nick Clegg, for example, having the top role at Facebook, for example.
Or things like the bailouts for the banks and stuff like that.
Yeah, the bailouts for the banks.
It's like
you're gonna get rewarded for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Personally.
Yeah.
So we're seeing examples of how unified they actually are. And they're unified to the extent whereby they ain't got no morals for the rest of the population.
No, because they actually think of them as less, you know. That's just literally it. You know, we're in a world that we're in a country and a version of the world that believes in that monarchy. You know, and that is just, it's such a spectacle to see homeless people outside Buckingham Palace. It's like, or the said late Elizabeth sat on a golden throne dressed in the full garb stolen jewels, etc., talking about austerity. The two, I mean, but we're in a world that accepts that, or have been heavily trained to accept that, and so we can't see beyond the scope of what these situations are. And what you're saying now, and what I agree with, is that, thinking in ways that already occurs amongst those higher ups, but also for ourselves, going back as Africans, going back to what we used to do. So you mentioned the pardoner, talking about the susu as well, which is the, I believe, Igbo term for the same thing. Basically, everyone puts their money in the one pot, and at the end of the month, or whenever, or maybe it's the whole year, that one person gets that. The next year it's going to be the next person, or the next month. It depends on how you're running that system, but it's fair is the point. And it's, it guarantees that people are going to be always supported and helped out at a certain point of a need in their life, which happens. You're raising a family, you are, starting to move into a new area, whatever it may be, or you're just struggling at that point in time because there's so much stress, the daily stress of life, mental health issues, all these things that occur, but your community's got you. And that's literally what we want to leave people with, is understanding that in a time where people are feeling so powerless, there is so much that you do have to, in terms of outside of monetary form. So if it's not even a literal susu where everyone's putting their money in, but what else you have that is valued, that's valuable. So you mentioned, like, we need admin people. We're artists. We're entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial artists, which is like a mad mix, right? We've got so much ideas, so much care for our community, and we're talented artists and all this kind of stuff. So we've got so much, but all of that needs to be orderly and put in certain types of ways. So people that enjoy doing that, enjoy making lists, and that's their thing, that would be valuable to us, and there'd be an exchange. Like, what would we give to you? And that's how we kind of work around the need for the other types of currencies. There's other energies. Currency is an energy, it's a flow, but that also comes in our other formats, in other ways that we can bring value to a community setting. We've got to start thinking more like that.
Absolutely. Just having more of these type of conversations. I think we should have this type of conversation as well. Like more. Like people do need to have these sort of like critical conversations, and just seeing where the world is at, how it's positioning them. And the reason why is because I say this often, but the survival of the fittest relies on the strength of the collective. So we're operating as individuals in this world, you won't survive. It's just the way it is. Like, if you want to thrive as well, especially, then it's the strength of your collective. That's what it is down to.
100%. And I think we can sort of close it off there, even though there's so much to say about the cost of living right now. Even like a personal account, maybe we'll give that at a later time. But for now, we just wanted to touch on this trending subject and bring our piece to the mic. So thanks for tuning in. Please spread this video if you liked what you saw, if you enjoyed myself and Nat's opinions, if you learned anything today, if you want to teach us something, just comment below. We want to hear from you, and do support what we're doing by subscribing to our channel
and supporting our Patreon when it does come up.
Yes.
Or our Cash App, or either or both of them. Support them when it comes up, because we're entrepreneurial artists.
That's right.
But artists do need support.
That's right.
Yeah, we're not doing this content. We valued what we deliver.
Right.
So if you value it, then support it. Yeah.
Yeah. So give thanks for tuning in. All right.